Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's Jim, it's Matt, and we have three big things to talk about today. The mock draft, of course, that's always fun. Some college news, ranking some of the top 10 most attractive players in that have found new landing spots, and our afternoon MLB scoreboard. So, Matthew, we got a ton of very entertaining, hopefully, topics here. Let me do a quick run through the scoreboard, give everybody an idea what's going on. Let's go to Cincinnati, where in the top of the ninth, the Buccos, Pittsburgh is 4-3 over the Reds at Oriole Park at Camden Yard. It is the Birds 8, the Rangers 3. Bottom seven in Miami, it is the Marlins just wiping out the White Sox by a score of 9-0. In at the bank in Philadelphia, the Nationals are up on the Phils 2-1. That game's a top seven. Top seven in Toronto, the Jays are over the Rockies 1-0. Mets and Cardinals top five. They're tied 0-0. Bottom of the fourth inning, Brew Crew and the Rays are tied at 2. Top four, Astros and Red Sox are tied 2-2. And let's see if we have any more. As I scroll down, yep, we got more. Angels, Cubs up on the Angels in third at Wrigley. At 3:40, the Diamondbacks and Tigers will get underway. Scooble is pitching for the Tigers today, and Galen is throwing for the Diamondbacks, Giants, Padres. That's Hauser and Pavetta. Yankees, Mariners, that's a 4:10 start. Schiller and Kirby pitching. Twins and Royals, Brian and Cameroon, jeez. Pitching for Kansas City there. Dodgers and the Guardians, that would be Williams for the Guardians and Yamamoto for Dodgers. Athletics and lost to the Braves this afternoon. That's a final now. Chris Sale wins it, and Cervino loses as the Athletics and the Brewers are finished for the day. The Braves beat them by a score of 5-1. 5-1. Seems like it's simple to say, but for some reason I can't say it. All right. Where do you want to go, college or pro first, Matthew? Your choice.
We'll go with the college and the transfer portal, seeing where these guys have landed.
Okay. Now this is CBS Sports and their rankings. The number one lander is Jeremiah Smith, quarterback at Ohio State. He's got, let's see, there's no offensive player in college football that impacts the game as much as Smith. He's the leading Heisman Trophy candidate in his third season with the Buckeyes. Smith has scored 29 touchdowns, has clips 100 yards receiving on 11 occasions despite losing. Despite opposing staff throwing everything they can defensively at the Miami native, it hasn't seemed to do anything for him. So the wide receiver from Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith, is their number one guy.
Yeah, that really physically, you understand who Jeremiah Smith is as a player. Last year, teams came at him a little bit differently. Didn't have the same kind of production that he had his freshman season, but was still extremely effective when he got his looks. I think another year with Julian Sayin at quarterback is going to give him a little bit more of that familiarity with his quarterback, probably a little bit better chemistry, and lead to some better numbers going into what is going to be his final year in college football.
This one falls under the category of being able to keep him. Mr. Miami and Malachi Tony. Tony was a hell of a wide receiver last year, and he certainly helped Miami in that game. So
Yeah.
Tony's 109 reception. It's a single season program record and an ACC freshman record. So as a freshman, Tony's coming back for Mario Cristobal and the University of Miami. So that's good news for Miami, bad news for the ACC. How about Cam Coleman in Texas? In
Yeah.
2016, he, you know, transferred over. Coleman took a sizable payday with the Longhorns offer. Um, Basically, it was Arch Manning who helped him decide what to do. He's the number
Hmm.
2 receiver and the number 5 overall prospect in the 2024-2025 class by the 24/7 Sports. Coleman finished with 93 receptions for 1,306 yards, 13 touchdowns across 23 games at Auburn. Despite inconsistent quarterback play, he is considered one of the best wide receivers in the country.
Yeah, and Cam Coleman's a guy where it's you mentioned Arch Manning being a difference, and that really was. He was getting the same kind of payday regardless of where he went. There were
Mhm.
a lot of schools that were willing to match the offer that Texas gave him. So it's not one of those scenarios where you have a guy that's making this decision solely based off money to go to the University of Texas. I know they have more of it than most schools do in the country, but he went to Texas because of Steve Sarkisian, because of Arch Manning, and
Mhm.
because of what they could offer him offensively compared to some of the other spots that he was considering.
We're now at Florida State. Deuce Robinson decided to stay. Now, he could have named his price in the transfer portal, but he decided to stay in Tallahassee after hearing from NFL draft committee people that maybe, just maybe, what he needed to do was hang around and get some more, um, you know, reps in college. So he's spending his final year in Tallahassee after earning all conference accolades, following his 56 catch showing. He's 6'6", 230 pounds, former 5-star matchup. He's a nightmare when trying to catch, following 1-on-1. I mean, there's no defensive back it's 6'6". So, he's a pretty easy target to find. I guess what they want him to do is put on some weight and learn blocking better, or maybe run routes. But when you get the advisory committee telling you to go back to school, it's usually for something that you desperately need to work on.
Yeah, and I think there's probably had to do a little bit with his route running. He was more of a guy that was a deep threat, but really a lone bright spot for Florida State last year, and what was again a letdown of a season. This
Mhm.
is something where he's going to be their leader in the receiving room. He's got to be the guy for Florida State if they're going to have any type of resurgent year this year.
Mhm. We had Charlie Beck is returning to Indiana, known as Mr. Backshoulder. And Becker's an elite wide receiver, and I think that the ability for the folks in Indiana to keep him was a very, very big plus. So we'll see how that works out. He's not going to have the same quarterback throwing to him, but we definitely will see how Kurt Segretti's going to use him in that high-powered Indiana offense.
Yeah, I think it's interesting so far on this list. I'm seeing the trend of it being pretty much only receivers thus far,
Yeah, this is
which
a this is a group of wide receivers that CBS put out.
okay, the group of wide receivers. That makes more sense. For some reason, there was something lost in translation there. I thought it was all players returning to college football, but yeah, Charlie Becker, a guy who really made his name in the college football playoffs. Not that he didn't play well throughout the entirety of the season,
Mhm.
but he really earned his stripes in the playoffs, specifically the national championship, that Peach Bowl. People remember those catches that he had, and really just how unstoppable he was in one-on-one matchups.
Mario Carver, Texas A&M. This kid was from Mississippi State, transferred over last year. averaged 15 yards per catch, finished with 917 yards on 59 catches. For the Aggies, Colin Klein, who's the AC at Kansas State, has been promoted to A&M's. I'm sorry, let me get this straight. After coordinator Colin Klein left for K-State, A&M promoted Holden Wigsom to the play caller spot, and he was one of the keys to getting Carver to Texas A&M. So perhaps that's going to help out him out. He's only 5'9" though. That's a he's got the nickname of Super Mario, but 5'9" wide receiver. I don't know.
Yeah, it's his speed and his acceleration, his
Right.
ability to create separation. That's what makes the difference for Mario Craver.
Mhm.
That's what makes him an elite receiver. He's somebody who might have a kind of year like Zachariah Branch had at Georgia,
Mhm.
where he's kind of, I wouldn't say he's flown under the radar, but he's definitely more in that style of receiver. You saw what he was
Mhm.
able to do this year. I think they might potentially be better off in the quarterback room this year at Texas A&M. And I think it's a situation where Mario Craver is set up to shine really in that offense.
Mhm. Number 7 on our list at Oklahoma State University. This is a guy who transferred over from North Texas, and it's Eric Morris. He's in Stillwater now for his first year um, with I'm sorry, with first year coach Eric Morris. It should. All right, let me start this again. This is ridiculous. I can't seem to read here. One of several impact North Texas players who followed first year coach Eric Morris to Stillwater is young. All right. Partially because he wanted out of the group of six. And the other part was because he's a good receiver. He made 70 catches for 1,264 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's going to be teaming back up with his quarterback, who was the thrower at North Texas. That's Drew Mastermaker, and now they're together again. Only this time at Okie State.
Yeah, and just really carrying over the success at North Texas. The quarterback, obviously, Mestamaker, his head coach, Eric Morris, all of them making that move together.
Yep. Number 8 on our list, K.G. Duff of Rutgers. He's a playmaker for the Scarlet Knights. Since he stepped on campus, Duff has become a recognizable threat in the Big Ten. He's somebody who a lot of folks choose to scheme uh, on because he's another 6'6" wide receiver at 225 pounds. It's somebody that is almost uh, they high point him a lot, so that basically meaning it's either he's gonna catch or nobody's gonna catch. So we'll have to see how that works out. I'm not so certain that I think Duff's problem on his side is the speed. I don't think he's a good possession receiver. I'm not so sure he's going to beat you deep because he had 7 touchdowns and over 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I think that might speak a little bit more to Rutgers and what their quarterback situation has looked like. I was surprised to see him stay at Rutgers, given his
Mhm.
size and his athletic ability, because I think he is a guy that can get more open down the field and become more that 50-50 ball type threat.
Ryan Coleman Williams, the Alabama Crimson Tide. Now he was at Georgia as a freshman, and
Mm, no,
this was
Ryan Williams has been at Bama. He's the guy who had the catch against Georgia at Bama his freshman year.
okay. There's a misprint here. That's all right. Um, so he's had one 100-yard outing over his last 21 games.
Yeah,
But
that was yeah.
Mhm.
It was a really bad sophomore season for Ryan Williams. Not what they expected after his what was really a successful freshman campaign. But when you looked at the
Mhm.
numbers, again, it was a campaign that started strong. He played really well in about his first half of the season, um, dating back to 2024. And that's something that they really expected to carry over. It didn't with Ty Simpson. And I think there's a lot of factors that can go into that, but I would expect Ryan Williams to be able to bounce back this year.
Well, the hope is that the entire Alabama offense will find a way to get back because they didn't have their offense wasn't that great last year. Uh, they like him as a basically as a threat. They feel that if he can become more consistent, that he's going to be a top wide receiver. Last on the list of wide receivers here is Clemson, and that's Brian Wesco Jr. Wesco played only 6 games for the Tigers last year after suffering a back injury against SMU in October, but his production levels were very impressive, including a pair of 2 touchdown outings. At full strength, Wesco's field stretching ability gives him elite status. And this year the quarterback is Christopher Vizina. They're hoping that that Brian can help him out because right now, according to CBS, Clemson's going to have to rely a great deal on their wide receivers.
Yeah, and this is a guy coming out of high school in Brian Wesco that was expected to be kind of like the next guy at Clemson. Obviously, they had that run on wide receiver T. Higgins, DeAndre Hopkins, Justin Ross, really a bunch of stud 5-stars that came through Clemson in those mid-2000s, early 2020 years. And it's something they've really been missing for the last couple of years. It's been a big difference maker in their offense. People talk about the Clemson offense going stale. Part of it has been a lack of contribution from their wide receivers. You can blame it on scheme. But Brian Wesco was a guy that they were depending on last year. Obviously, you cited his injury. Nothing he can really do about that. But they're going to need the help because their quarterback position this year, no matter what people's feelings are on Kate Klubnik one way or the other, it's not going to be an upgrade by any measure.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move over to the pros. Now, this is a compilation of all the different pre-draft drafts. Okay, so here we go. To no one's surprise, the Las Vegas Raiders will likely have Fernando Mendoza signed by the time that the draft comes around.
They've already got him going through their playbooks.
Yeah, so we'll see because they're Mendoza. He should do well under Clint Kubiak. Kubiak's been a very good resuscitator of careers.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But it is the Raiders still. So don't get too excited. All right. New York Jets in the number 2 spot. Consensus says Arvil Reese, linebacker, edge rusher, Ohio State. Jets need defense. And they think that Mr. Reese is that guy.
Yeah, and I just don't know where you go if you're the Jets. There's obviously not going to be a quarterback that you feel worthy of taking it to, but this is a team that has so many holes. I'd say it's hard to fault them regardless of where they go. Arvell Reese, big athletic linebacker, he can probably fit a couple of different roles if you're New York and Aaron Glenn.
Mm-hmm. Going to Arizona next, to Cardinals. And Sonny Styles, linebacker out of The Ohio State University, 6'5", 244. Cardinals feel that they need stronger defensive play, and certainly somebody who can rush the quarterback is a key to them. They think Styles, although he played linebacker at Ohio State, they feel that he's probably going to be an edge rusher for them.
Yeah, and he's kind of in a similar mold to that of Arvell Reese, where he can play the different styles and different roles, and that has a lot to do with his size and his speed. You feel really confident based on some of the pass rushes that he put on tape in college at Ohio State on his ability to transition to that position. And so it's not a surprise to see those two linebackers up there in the top 5 just based off the years they had at Ohio State.
Well, let's keep moving to linebacker because Tennessee's going to take Miami's Reuben Bain Jr. who is the linebacker and edge rusher out of Miami, 6'2", 263. The Titans like him. What's not to like? I mean, he was a fantastic player in college. There's no reason to believe that he's not going to be good in Tennessee. They also added Robert Saleh, and so they're bulking up that defense for the Titans.
Yeah, then for Ruben Bain, there's going to be concerns, and that's mainly regarding his arm length. Whether
Mm-hmm.
they're fair or not, it's a different ballgame when you're playing in the
Mm-hmm.
NFL. We saw that with Will Campbell and how he struggled. His arms were a concern. Lots of talk
Mm-hmm.
about him moving inside the guard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that Mike Graven wants to do, and it's something that I think people should have legitimate questions on regarding Ruben Bain because we've seen it not translate. As much as people want to make a deal about it, is arm length something that matters? If it truly is, then Ruben Bain's going to have a hard time and be fighting an uphill battle
Mm-hmm.
in Tennessee.
Let's move down to the Giants, the other team in the New York area. They're going to go for safety Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. He's a 6-footer, 206 pounds. They like him. They think that on the back end they need help, and that Mr. Downs is the guy who can give it to them.
Yeah, and Downs is another guy where again Ohio State defense. You saw what they were able to do this year. Obviously, that disappointing loss in the Cotton Bowl, not
Mm-hmm.
really where they saw their season ending, especially with how well that defense played all the way
Mm-hmm.
throughout. Downs really their leader. I think the biggest question about Downs and the reason he's not going higher is there's questions about where he fits. Is he a safety? Is he a
Mm-hmm.
linebacker? Is he a box safety? He's a little bit of a different style of player, and some
Mm-hmm.
guys on defense they may not know how to work with him. He's not
Mm-hmm.
gonna play the same as Nick Evenwari does, but
Right.
he's gonna have a role, and he's gonna be your leader of the defense if you give him the reins when you pick him up.
Well, John Harbaugh's first year in New York, I one thing John does is he gets the best out of his players, and so I think that if they drafted him, they got a way of fitting him into that lineup. The Cleveland Browns, on the other hand, go wide receiver. Here's a stunner. Uh, Ohio State, 6'2", Mr. Carnell Tate.
I, yeah, that it's a run on Ohio State players so far that you've listed. I don't
Mm-hmm.
love that. They, I get it. There's a lot of really successful guys out of Ohio State. They've done a really good job at developing, especially at the wide receiver position. And Carnell Tate's very good. Played really second fiddle to Jeremiah Smith for a lot of this year, but got a lot more run because of the way teams were guarding Jeremiah Smith. I just don't know if he's worthy of going that high in the draft.
One of our few first round so far in the 7th spot offensive players, Jeremiah Love, running back, Notre Dame, 6', 212. The Commanders think that they need a workhorse back. Um, they've been shuffling backs around the past couple of seasons. They added a complimentary receiving back in Rashad White in free agency, which to me leaves the door wide open for Jeremiah Love to walk through if that is his ability, and they got to get some pressure off of Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and I think Jeremiah Love's the type of guy that whoever ends up picking him up, they're not going to be upset with their decision. You know what you get when you draft running backs high.
Mm-hmm.
There's a certain lifespan that you understand, but for to that same point, it's a guy that feels like a can't miss kind of prospect. With what Jeremiah Love did throughout his
Mm-hmm.
college career, he was fantastic at Notre Dame throughout his entire
Yep.
career. And I fully expect, really, with his upkeep, he doesn't have a lot of injury history. And so he's a guy that has the ability, I think, to stay healthy for a long time. And he's just really special athletically in the open field.
Well, let's go now to New Orleans, where David Bailey from Texas Tech is going to head to the Bayou. Um, and they need to replace Cameron Jordan. They feel that David Bailey, the edge rusher out of Texas, 6'4", 251, is their guy.
Yeah, really surprised. This is the first Texas Tech defender to come off the board. At this point, it really felt like a scenario where that Texas Tech defensive line specifically is something that was really special throughout the Big 12 this year. We saw, obviously, they had a little bit of a struggle as a team against Oregon, but it wasn't a defensive struggle against Oregon. It was an offensive struggle for them. That defensive line held every bit of their own against that Oregon team in the Orange Bowl, and
Mm-hmm.
I really like the unit of that Texas Tech defensive line. Now it's just a
Mm-hmm.
matter of where do they fit in the NFL.
Kansas City's up next in the 9 spot. They're going to go with LSU's Mansour Delane. He's a cornerback. The Chiefs have to rebuild their their back line, and I think they feel that Delane is a guy who has SEC credentials, who's been phenomenal at LSU. He's a little undersized, but he's somebody that they feel that is worth taking a shot at.
Yeah, big, long man corner really is what you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
when you pick Mansour Delane. So it's a pick that makes sense. He's really a guy he played well at LSU, but
Mm-hmm.
it's projection based. Is you like what you saw out of him, but you're expecting a lot more once he gets to the next level.
Okay, the Bengals in the number 10 spot. Peter Woods, defensive tackle, Clemson. Bengals need to beef up their offensive line, and Woods at 6'2", 298 seems to be a pretty good size defensive tackle, which I think they feel will help them, as they build both the offensive and defensive lines.
Yeah, I don't love this pick. The problems in Cincinnati have very clearly been their offensive line these last few years. I
Mm-hmm.
know the defense has been bad, but you have a franchise asset that you're committed to long term,
Mm-hmm.
and you would think that you would commit the draft capital to protecting him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not something that they're doing here. I would prefer to see an offensive tackle or an offensive lineman come off the board at that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Not something that's going to happen based on that mock, but it's something that I'm sure they're looking at both sides of. But
Mm-hmm.
at least in my thinking, I prefer to invest in the asset that's going to keep my quarterback around long term. I feel like it's harder to go out and makeshift an offensive line than it is to kind of just go out and sign some really good D linemen and
Mm-hmm.
put everything together. So this is a situation where I really like to see them go offensive line.
Let's go to Miami. Jerry McCoy, cornerback, Tennessee. I'm sorry, Tennessee, 6'1", 188. Again, the Dolphins, like seemingly everybody on this board, is looking for defensive help, and so you know you got McCoy going from Tennessee out to Miami.
Yeah, and that's a situation where again Miami's got plenty of holes that they're going to need to fill in the draft, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Jamon
Right.
McCoy is just a really good corner out of Tennessee. It's been a while since you've seen him. He didn't play this year at Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
but when he did play, I believe he's somewhere in the neighborhood. He's a guy who's also 6'3", nice long arms, really good
Mm-hmm.
rangy corner.
Going to Dallas, Akeem Mansour. Uh, he's an edge rusher out of Miami, 6'3", 259. Cowboys, of course, traded for Rashawn Gary in hopes of doing a Michael Parsons, you know, uh, do over. Make sure that when Michael left, they were down at that spot. So now they're hoping to build back that issue that the Cowboys had by trading Micah Parsons.
Yeah, and that's something where you weren't going to fill the gap when you traded for Michael Parsons. There wasn't going to be an immediate gap fill with the
No.
kind of player that he was. But it's something that you can fill through multiple acquisitions. You mentioned the
Mm-hmm.
trade and the piece they got back in the middle with Kenny Clark coming
Mm-hmm.
back in that Michael Parsons trade. Now they're going a little bit more edge with Mesidor out of Miami and really just kind of able to rebuild their defensive line maybe a little bit more of a complete defensive line. You don't have the same presence of a Micah Parsons on that line, but when you have pressure coming from multiple spots, it can create a lot of problems as well.
Let's go to the Rams. This one is a draft pick from the Falcons. It's 13. Spencer Fano, offensive tackle, Utah. This guy's 6'6", 3 bills. I think Matthew Stafford's gonna go pick him up at the airport. That's the guy they actually draft. Because the Rams want to build that offensive line back to protect Matthew, and you got a guy in Fano who's 6'6", 302 pounds. That's a big body right there.
Yeah, that is, and it's a situation where that helps fill the gaps. They obviously went out in free agency, filled their secondary holes, so they don't have that as a concern as much in that first round of the draft. Really, one of the few times it feels like you're actually going to see the Rams picking in the first round, especially picking high in the first round,
right,
since Les Snead has been their GM. But it's a situation where I would also love to see them. If he's available, I would love to see him take Jeremiah Love. Obviously, I would love to see them trade up and take him as well, because that feels like something that could also change their offense.
Okay, in Baltimore, the Ravens are looking south to Miami. Another offensive tackle this time. And it's Francis Miagoa. I'm sorry. He's 6'6", 315. The Ravens, again, basically they had a problem on the offensive line last year. They hope to plug those gaps, and we'll see, if this is it. And again, remember, folks, these are mock drafts. These are not, these are just guesses based on a number of factors. So we're not putting people on teams just yet. This is where things are, where people get to speculate where they're going. The Buccaneers slide in at the number 15 spot. They are going for a tight end out of Oregon, and that's Kenyon Sadiq. And the Buccaneers, they re-signed Cade Otton, who's their top, tight end. And they think, that Sadiq could be Baker Mayfield's red zone guy, and for what he did for Oregon in all the time he was there. So perhaps that's true. We'll see.
Yeah, and Kenyon Sadiq was such a multiple weapon at Oregon, such a difference maker when he was in that offense versus when he wasn't, because of his ability to win one-on-one, because he was so quick and really able to create those mismatches. He has the ability to separate like a wide receiver, but he does have that 6'3" frame, really, really strong, really built guy. So he's somebody who's going to need to develop a little bit in his blocking game. But in terms of receiver, he's really tailor-made for the NFL as a receiver at tight end.
Well, speaking of receivers, we actually get one this time. Wide receiver, New York Jets. This is a trade from the Colts. Gives him this one. And it's Makai Lemon from USC. 5'11", 192 pounds. He's a burner. And they like him because they feel that he can play in the slot, give Geno Smith somebody to throw at other than Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, and with Garrett Wilson, I think he's a little bit unhappy there in New York. This gives you a little bit of a fresh face in that receiver room, and a guy who maybe some people didn't necessarily love him and his personality in some of the pre-draft interviews,
right?
But when he steps on the football field, he's really good, and that's really what rules the day when you're making these draft picks. Is you're going to let talented guys go a certain distance if they have some character concerns, but at a certain point for these NFL execs, the negatives eventually get outweighed by the talent at a certain point in these rounds.
Okay, let's go to the Lions. Blake Miller, offensive tackle, Clemson, 6'6", 315 pounds. the Lions do need offensive line help, and Miller. A lot of people like earlier than than 17.
Yeah, big offensive tackle played there under Dabo Swinney at Clemson. It's going to be interesting. They obviously need help with Frank Ragnow retiring early in this offseason. So they need to do some shifting and moving around, and obviously a tackle the other side of Penei Sewell is something that would do them good.
Right. Minnesota Vikings, Dylan Thiemann, safety, Oregon, 6 foot, 201 pounds. The Vikings need to replenish their back end. And without Harrison Smith, this kid is somebody that could very well help them.
Yeah. Thiem, transferred over to Oregon this season and was just a plug and play kind of safety. He's
Right.
a little bit like Caleb Downs. Geez, don't know why I blanked there. A little bit like Caleb Downs in his play style. But he's just not the same as Downs. He's not as athletic, not as good, but he is a fantastic safety.
Mm-hmm. All right, Carolina Panthers. They're going for Jordan Tyson, wide receiver, Arizona State. So that's where they're going. Dave Canales, I guess, Dave Canales is an offensive guy. I guess he thinks that it's going to help them put some points on the board.
Yeah, and he's just a really big wide receiver. And that's something that can be attractive. I think it's interesting given their pick of Tedero McMillan last year. You would have thought that role was kind of filled for them in terms of what Jordan Tyson does well. But if you have multiple guys that can do what Tedero McMillan does at a high level, that's never going to be a bad thing.
All right, let's go down to Dallas, followed by Pittsburgh. We got Dallas. It's Elyon Terrell, cornerback, Clemson, 5'11", 186. The Cowboys, earlier we had them taking a pass rusher. Now that we've got them taking somebody in the secondary. So they're playing defense in Dallas is where they're going on their draft, it looks like, at this point. So adding a cornerback probably makes a lot of sense if you're going to rebuild that Dallas defense. Matt, we're having a little trouble. Having a little trouble with your audio there. Having a little trouble with your audio there. Little bit of problem with Mike's. Okay, Matthew's audio is a little bit smashed there for a second. We'll let him sort that out as he, whenever you can, Matt. Don't worry about it. Just log out, log back in. Maybe that's a problem. Pittsburgh Steelers are going to go for Caleb Bloom. He's an offensive tackle out of Utah, 6'6", 304 pounds. Makes sense. Pittsburgh has been rebuilding their entire offensive line all season long, and there's no reason to doubt that they'll continue to do it. Chargers at 22. Kelly Fox, he's an edge rusher out of Auburn, 6'6", 276 pounds. Chargers again. The Khalil Mack is coming back, but they lost 2 or 3 different players on that offensive line. You can never have too many good offensive liner people, and in this case, they want a defensive back to come through, and Khalil Fox is that guy, or at least that's what they think from Auburn. Philadelphia Eagles in the 23rd spot, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. He's a safety out of Toledo. A lot of people didn't know much about him, but he was a monster in the MAC, so we'll have to see. Cleveland Browns is going for Leona. He's a guard out of Penn State, I'm sorry. 6'4", 330. So another big body there. The Bears looking in the big body category. How about this one? Caden Proctor. Bears are getting a 6'7", 366 pounder. they're also thinking safety. So again, welcome back, Matt. We're on Buffalo at 26. And that's Cassius Howell, edge rusher, Texas A&M, 6'3", 253. He's a high energy guy, a big motor guy, and somebody who the Bills think can be a pass rusher. We move down to 27. That's the first of the 49ers. That's Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver, Indiana. He's 196 pounds, 6 foot. The Niners like him. They're going to add him to a wide receiver room that now has Mike Evans and Christian Kirk in it. And as they kind of give Brock Purdy some definite targets to hit. Houston, Caden McDaniels, Ohio State. He is a defensive tackle, 6'3", 326. That's a monster. Kansas City from the Rams is their second draft choice in the first round. Monroe Feeling, offensive tackle out of Georgia, 6'7", 315-pounder. Chiefs like the idea of going after those big offensive linemen. And Monroe Feeling out of Georgia is a guy who many people think that's one of the best. Miami, this one's their second draft choice. This one comes from the Broncos in a trade. KC Concepcion, wide receiver, Texas A&M. Speed guy, nothing like Jaden Waddle or Jerry Hill, but definitely a speed guy. The new quarterback, Malik Willis, now has somebody who they feel, the Dolphins feel, will help them out. New England Patriots, T.J. Parker, edge rusher out of Clemson, 6'4", 265 pounds. Seattle Seahawks in the 31st and final first round spot. He's going to take Colton Hood, cornerback, Tennessee. He's a flat 6 foot, even 193 pounds. The Seahawks like Tarek Wooden last year, free agency. They think Hood is their guy, and so we'll have to see. Again, remember, these are mock drafts. They're not to be confused with a real one. We'll get into that one a little later in the month of April, okay? All right, let's go back to the scoreboard real quick before we get out of here. Hang on 1 second. Put Matt back in. There you go, Matt. We're going to run to the scoreboard here real quick before we get out of here today. We're going into the bottom. Yeah, we're going into the top of the ninth in the bank in Philadelphia. Nationals leading the Phillies 5-3. We've got top of the ninth in Toronto. It's 1-1, the Rockies and the Jays. The Rays and the Brewers, bottom of the seventh. That game's tied at 2. Mets and Cardinals, bottom 6. Mets are leading the Cardinals by a score of 1-0. We move on to mid-6. Your Red Sox are trailing the Astros by a score of 5-2 in the middle of the 6th. At the end of get it out of the way first. The Cubs are 5 up on the Angels at the end of 5. Mid-first, as we start getting the 4 o'clock games getting ready to play here very soon. Diamondbacks and the Tigers have just gotten started. Tigers are coming to bat, and the Diamondbacks now get their turn. They're in warm-ups in San Francisco, where the Padres and the Giants meet. The Yankees are in Seattle. That's a warm-up. They're getting ready for that game. Out in Seattle, the Mariners entertaining the Yankees. Twins are at Kansas City. That's a 7:40 start. Dodgers host the Guardians. That's an 8:20 start. Braves, as we said earlier, have won their game against the Athletics by a score of 5-1. Winning pitcher was Chris Sale in that one. Savino lost it. Rangers and the Orioles. The Rangers lose to the Birds, who are even record now at 3-3. They're 8-3 today. Their winners Rogers. Losers Evaldi. Pirates drubbed the Cincinnati Reds by a score of 8-3. Paul Skeens 1-1 now for the season. And the Marlins blow out the White Sox. You're not going to hear that. The 5-1 Miami Marlins, Sandy Alcantara pitching. He was your winner today. Smith loses for the White Sox. So that's our afternoon scoreboard here. So there we are, Matthew. We got through a lot of stuff, and let's. What would you like to chat about on the way out? Any final thoughts?
Just same old from the Red Sox. What's better than starting 1-4, starting 1-5? So
yeah, well, we'll see. It's a long season. Don't give up yet. Plenty of time.
Yeah, supposedly.
Yep. We heard rumors, right? All right, bud. Yeah, everybody have a great day. Happy Passover to those who are getting ready for that, and getting ready for Easter this weekend. So we got a lot of big holiday weekend coming up. So until tomorrow, gang, when I will not be here, but Matthew may be riding solo tomorrow. We'll see. 3:00, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay.